Don't take it, don't. Don't take it, don't. Don't take it, don't. Don't take it, don't.
Thank you so much for joining us at the New School at Commonweal. I am Kira Epstein, and today we offer the second in a series of 3 conversations about bringing mystery and love to peace building. The first of these conversations was held last month with refugee worker and Sufi guide Deepa Patel. It's already posted on our website and on all of our media sites, so listen or watch anytime you'd like. Today, we are so honored to bring and welcome the second guest in our series, Aljosie Aldrich Harding. Aljosie will be introduced in a moment, but I want to welcome back our host first, Serena Bian. Wearing one of her hats, Serena serves as a special advisor with U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy, bringing a spiritual and systemic understanding to the public health crisis of loneliness and isolation. She's also a chaplain in training, and she's pursuing questions of how we chaplain the end of extractive systems that isolate communities from themselves and one another. Serena serves on the Commonweal board, and it has been my absolute pleasure to collaborate with her on this series. In just a minute, I'm going to turn this over to Serena, but a few words first about our webinar and about the New School for those of you who don't know us. The New School at Commonweal is a learning community of dialogue and conversation, we like to say. We explore how to build more resilience and better stewardship for body, soul, community, and the earth. We produce our conversations and we make them available for thousands of listeners worldwide on YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. We've been doing this since 2007, and we have more than 400 podcasts available on our media sites. I also want to say that your support is critical to keep our programming coming. We keep our recordings and events free so all can participate, but we need your donations to do that. I always want to take time to thank Ken Adams, who's making all this run from behind the scenes. And you hear his voiceover on our podcast as well. So, Serena Bian and Aljosie Aldrich Harding, and all of you with us, welcome to the New School at Commonweal.
Thank you so much, Kira and Ken, for all the wonderful support in making this conversation happen, and to all those listening live, as well as those who will be joining from the podcast ethereal realms and YouTube video channels. Welcome. And Aljosie, I am so honored to introduce and be in conversation with you today. And I have a short little introduction prepared, and then we'll just move into conversation. At the beautiful age of, I believe, 83, Aljosie, you identify as a social justice movement elder, as a servant leader, a mother of 3, grandmother of 9, and great-grandmother of 2. How beautiful. As well as a community pollinator, because you're such a natural connector of people and ideas. You've been working in social justice all across your life through both northern and southern cities, and I have witnessed your essence as bringing the divine feminine into community activism and organizing work. You've led women's circles, specialize in healing justice, and also act as a spiritual guide for many young activists with such a keen attention towards wholeness and well-being for those working on the front lines of social change. And in your personal life, you've shared such a profound love with your fellow coworker and partner and late husband, Dr. Vincent Harding. And together, one of the things that I so deeply admire about the both of you is the ways that you've built intergenerational relationships and always have an eye towards bringing together older and younger generations for dialogue and learning. You loved each other deeply and found so much joy and laughter in the struggle, and I'm grateful to talk about all of this more today. And finally, I know you as an elder through the National Council of Elders, which was founded in 2011 by Vincent, by James and Phil Lawson, Dolores Huerta, the United Farm Workers Movement, and Grace Lee Boggs to engage leaders of the 20th century's great movements to those who are continuing to stand in solidarity with movements against racism, militarism, and materialism. And in particular, it's just been so amazing watching how you elders continue to show up and stand with the young people who are at the front lines of building this beloved community together. And we met because months ago, we had the opportunity to share a car ride home from an event. And I was just so instantly drawn towards your being, Aljosie, with your love of eldering and working alongside young people, to the sense of spiritual wholeness that I really feel from you, the pursuit of lifelong learning, and also being a student of love. So, Aljosie, welcome to the New School today.
Serena, thank you so very much for the invitation. And thank you very much for helping me to know better who I am. It's so often that when we talk to other people and we hear them say things about us, that we can feel it ourselves. We know what we're trying to be, but we're not always sure if we're getting there. And to hear you with all those wonderful, positive things about who I am, I can believe that's who I am.
Well, I'm so glad to be a mirror for you and for us to be mirrors to one another today. Well, Aljosie, I'd love to get started with just a question about what kind of world you were born into, and would love to hear a little bit about your childhood and your upbringing.
Well, I was born in 1941 in southern United States, Salisbury, North Carolina. I was born in a time of segregation, discrimination as a law and practice of the land. I was born into a family that I share and talk openly about. I was born to a mother who was 30 when I was born, but who had been married previously and who had 2 children, and who had been in a relationship with someone who was not her husband. And so I was born out of wedlock. And that was one of the shaping things of my childhood. In those days, they used ugly terms for you. They called you illegitimate and a B word that was very painful to me. But at the same time, I was born into a family that was a loving, extended family, maternally and my brothers were 12 and 10 when I was born. My 10-year-old brother, Benny, wasn't too happy to see me come along. He'd been the baby. But my brother, Bubba, who was James Baker, was 12. And he was very ready for me and very open and very loving. And he thought I fell from heaven. And that's the way he treated me. So that's a little bit about it and my early childhood. So I'll be happy to elaborate later. I'll probably bring that in as we go along.
Thank you. And I'm just hearing about your Bubba, and I would just love to hear more about, this Bubba and how he loved you into being a child.
Oh, I can talk about Bubba. And I'll say also that I had the great privilege of knowing and meeting Grace Lee Boggs. And she was telling me about her husband, Jimmy. And I was telling her about Bubba. And we were both talking about them as sweet men. And she said that I should do more talking and sharing about sweet men. So I haven't written what I should write about Bubba yet. But Bubba was... It's so hard for me to say. I can just give you examples that he would, when I was about 3 and he would have been 15, during the summer, he would be out doing various jobs, working in the community and making a little money. And I would be home playing in the yard. And he would come and I would have made him some mud pies. I would be out under the tree and I'd make him mud pies. And he would come in and say, "What did you make today?" And I said, "I made you an apple pie." He'd give me a few pennies for the apple pie. And what else? "I made you a peach pie." And he would sit there with me and pretend that he was eating my pies and just do all those kinds of being and loving things. And he made me a bicycle from different parts. And he was just always there for me. I can't recall that he ever even frowned at me throughout my life. And my brother died in 2015. And he was just very loving. I wasn't always that loving toward him. And I did several things that might have caused him to be very unhappy with me later in life. One time, as an adult, I needed a car. I was divorced and I didn't have a car. And he let me borrow a Lincoln Continental. If you can remember, it's the size of a boat. And I was driving that Lincoln Continental and I kind of crushed the driver's side fender at a gas station. And I told him about it. He didn't say anything ugly. He said the insurance will pay for it. And he said, he sent me the connection. I got the insurance money. Well, I'm slightly embarrassed to say I spent the money on something else. And then later, about a year, I took him his car. I had an opportunity to get a new car, a new Chrysler. So my daughter and I went and we took my brother his car back with the crushed fender, and I'm driving a new Chrysler. He didn't bat an eye. He didn't say anything ugly. And later when someone asked him about that, he said, "She must have needed the money." And he never asked me about it. Now, I'm proud to say that I did later give him the money that he would have received earlier. But I just want you to know that he was there for me in all of the ways from childhood and protecting me. And I could feel it. I could feel the love. And that made a major difference in my life.
That's so beautiful to hear about just the grace that your Baba showed you and the power of that form of sibling love and the love of sweet men, which I'd love to hear you talk more about today as well. And, Aljosie, even in just what you shared about parts of your childhood, one of the things that I so admire about the way that you show up is in not hiding the difficult aspects of your life and sharing about how they have evolved and grown you into the person that you are today. And I know that reading was something that you loved to do as a young child. And would love for you to share more, if you'd like, about just the ways that as a young child you were a seeker of something. And I'm curious of what.
I was a seeker of knowledge. I was always interested in learning things, and I love to read. And again, Bubba had me reading before I went to school at 5. I could read and write when I went to school, which also made me an obnoxious student because they were trying to teach me things. I would say, "Oh no, my Bubba already taught me that. Oh no, I don't need to learn how to form these circles. I can already write in cursive. My Bubba taught me that." So I was inquisitive. I love learning. I never understood people who didn't like to read at different times in my life. I would have to set an alarm clock so that I would stop reading and could do some other things. And I always felt that my egg had been put in the wrong nest. I was in Salisbury, North Carolina, with the various limitations of that time and period. But I always felt that there was something greater for me. I hadn't been anywhere, but I knew there were some other places to be. And I read in those days, I used to read Pearl Buck and read about children in other cultures. And I loved biographies. And I just felt that there was another world. There were some other things, some other places that you could be. And so I dealt with some of the personal problems that I had from childhood, some of the pain, some of the, in certain times, loneliness. I dealt with some of those things by going another place in my mind and reading and knowing, believing that something else was there for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There was a teacher as well, right? That I forgot what grade you were in, but who really believed in you and saw you into that.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. I have to call her name, Mrs. Abner Agri Lancaster. And I'd love for people to go back and look up her father, who was James Agri, who was from the Gold Coast and who had come to Salisbury, North Carolina as a student to attend Hood Seminary. But Mrs. Lancaster saw something in me, and she helped me to find a certain peace with my mother, because my mother and I had a very strained relationship for many, many, many years. And she helped me to understand that my mother had her own life and that certain things that had motivated her were nothing to do with me. I used to think that my mother had me, as I told her one time, I just think you had me to make me miserable. But of course, Mrs. Lancaster helped me to see that I could create, first of all, that I must respect my mother, that she was there and she was doing all kinds of things to help me grow and be. And Mrs. Lancaster gave me the opportunity to be in oratorical contests. And at one time, she and I went to dinner. We actually integrated the Yatkin Hotel, I think in maybe 1956, something like that, when I won a Voice of America oratorical contest, and we went to the dinner. And so she had me speaking and writing. She was my English teacher, my French teacher. She was sharing with me various things about Africa and about culture, and just again exuded such warmth and confidence in me and encouraged me to be whoever I wanted to be, to create this person that I wanted to be and that she already believed in. And she stayed in my life past high school. I went back to see her many years later, and she had been in a book about extraordinary women, and she autographed a copy and said to my former brilliant student, and I just was like, oh yeah, I was so happy. And later on, when my mom died, she came to my house and she gave me $20. She said, I know you don't need this $20, but I just want to give it to you to just show you that I want to be supportive in any way that you need. And I'm still in contact with her daughter, Ramey Lancaster Evans. And I hope to do some research and to bring forth more about the story of Mrs. Lancaster and all of her contributions. I'm sure there are many of us that she made a major difference in our lives and who we could be. Again, remembering we were in segregated Salisbury, North Carolina, with all of those experiences. And she made us feel like we could do whatever we wanted. And the other thing is she was such a brilliant teacher that I was prepared in reading and writing and all that composition. When I went to college, I was fully prepared because she had instructed us. We were prepared. We might have gone to schools that didn't have as many resources and that in many ways were deficient. But in our own ability to learn, eagerness to learn, and basic skills, we were equal. We were equal, and we knew it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, even just hearing you reflect on that time and just entering into your college years and doing this public speaking and just this feeling of, I just hear that from a young age, you were instilled with a sense of voice and a sense of needing to figure out who you are and from what voice you spoke, but also being encouraged and loved into that process as well.
You're right. You're right. That is so very right. And I think our young people need that. They need both. They need whatever circumstances they're born into or whatever the world is doing as they're born. We need a sense of self. We need a sense of agency and possibility and encouragement. And I was blessed that I've had that along the way in my life, from my brother to Mrs. Lancaster to someone else I'd like to mention to you that I don't think I ever spoke to you about is Miss Judy Brush. Judy Brush is someone I met in Salisbury, no, in Cartersville, Georgia, when I was living there, and I was divorced. And I was living there working at the public library, and I met Judy Brush at the public library. Judy's born the same year as my mother. Judy was white from Virginia. And Judy and I hit it off, and she became my mother. She became the person that I first felt motherly love from. And I laughed and said, God had a great sense of humor, that he sent me my mother through in this white body of somebody born in Virginia. And she was my friend and supporter for the rest of her life.
What were some of the qualities about Judy that felt most nourishing to you as a surrogate mother?
Well, first of all, we both loved learning. That's what we met at the library. We loved travel, and she reinforced those kinds of things and encouraged me to travel when I was not able to visualize, oh, I can really go to Hawaii and visit my son. I don't really have the money. Yes, you can do that. So she encouraged me to reach beyond what I thought I could do. And then she offered me a sanctuary. She lived not too far from me. And she would say, come over. This can be the place where you can come and rest. And she didn't cook, but she had certain things in the refrigerator, in the cabinet, and she took a number of magazines, and so I could just go there and find sanctuary. And at this time, I had 3 children, and I was working more than one job. I've usually worked 2 to 3 jobs, and Judy was there. And I think one of the best things, Serena, was that if someone did me a wrong, and I told Judy, she would remember it forever. I could forget and be going on and doing something entirely different, and that person's name might come up, and Judy would say, no, I don't like him. Why, Judy? You remember he did so and so and so and so. I said, Judy, I already forgot that. I will never forget. So Judy would allow me to get past certain pains and what could have been grudges, and she would remember, because she saw me as a person who was, again, and in a setting, I was a librarian, but I was a librarian in a setting where I didn't get my full recognition. And she saw me as an intelligent, educated person there working in this library in Cartersville, Georgia, and just held me up and supported me and allowed me to bloom.
It's very moving hearing about that beautiful relationship between.
And I'm still in touch with her son. I've maintained a relationship over the years, and we go back and we have lunch from time to time. And I tell him, I'm really not trying to infringe, but Judy was my mother too.
How beautiful. Yeah, the web is thick with the love that moves through your life, Aljosie. Well, okay, so if we were to backtrack just a little bit about some aspects of your life, I'd like to do a brief summary and have you confirm or add pieces to it for our listeners today. You went on after grade school. You were valedictorian of your high school. You then went on to major in English and graduate studies in library sciences. And then you went on to become a part of the Peace Corps, which brought you to West Africa, to Togo, in which you described as an essential experience to help you understand race and racism in America. And then you went on after that to become a servant leader at the Institute of the Black World in Atlanta, which is, I believe, where you met Vincent, and later at the Learning House, which is an independent Afrocentric freedom school in the same city. And those experiences, along with your childhood and upbringing, along with these beautiful webs of people that loved on you, this all paved your beginning of what now has been over 50 years of nonviolent justice and organizing work. How did I do?
You know me better than I know myself, Serena. Let me just stop a minute with the Peace Corps, because the Peace Corps was, again, a pivotal spot in my life, because I went to undergraduate school in North Carolina, and I'd had some opportunities to get out of North Carolina because my brother, who was 10 years older, Benny, was then living in New York. So in the summers, I could go and see him, and he took me around to the Apollo and Small's Paradise and other places. And he said he didn't want me to be a little hick sister. He wanted me to be cultured. So he took me around and exposed me, and he started buying me clothes. But when I finished college, and I had the opportunity through a teacher in my college, Mrs. Helen Edmonds, who was on, I think, the Peace Corps committee, I had an opportunity in 1961 to go to Washington and to learn about the Peace Corps, and to be trained to go back on my campus and recruit. I had not planned to go to the Peace Corps. I was just going to recruit. But things happened. And by 62, I had a failed romance and didn't know what I was going to do with myself. So I took the test and I joined the Peace Corps. And when I went off to Lomé, Togo, this was an experience that when I arrived in Togo, and our plane was met by a number of government officials. I remember the Minister of Education, and he brought his daughter and some other people. And I was in a space, and I looked out and I saw people who were in leadership, and they looked like me. And I had not ever been in a setting like that, where I could feel free. I could feel myself. I was not othered. I was fine just as I was. And my whole childhood life, I had been struggling with being accepted and knowing that our feeling that I might not be enough, or what segregation does to you, what discrimination does to you. It tries to make you think that you are not enough as you are, that you don't need to look through your lens, that you need to look through somebody else's eyes. And when I got to Togo, I learned to look through my eyes, to look through the lens of other Black people. And I felt healed. I went from being this A personality person with migraine headaches to a person who, after a few months, never had a migraine headache again in my life. And so Togo was very healing for me in helping me to find myself. And my students were brilliant and loving and eager. And so I learned to enjoy teaching, and didn't ever want to teach in this country when I got back here. So I became a librarian so I could help with learning, but not be in the classroom. All of those things helped me to get to be this person that I wanted to become. They started preparing me to be open, to start reflecting the kinds of values that I really wanted. I truly want to be who I say I am. I truly want to be that. I truly, I am concerned to continue growing, to continue as I become aware of different parts of my being, to kind of like a guided missile, to keep coming back to center, to come back to being this child of God, that I finally discovered that I didn't have to worry about not having my father's name or not being recognized in certain ways, because actually those people, that father and mother, were my earthly people, but my true essence was, I'm a child of God. And once I really discovered that and found that, so much healing started happening and prepared me to go out and be with people and younger people and movement people and try to be a loving presence.
You know, it's so beautiful the ways that you wove divine love, God love, creator love, whatever words we want to use as an essential part of this healing journey, and the way that I witness your work in justice, it is so deeply and profoundly spiritual. And I've always been curious about what has been the impulse behind that. And it sounds like going to Togo and feeling that sense of freedom, like in your body and in your spirit, and the ways that brought you to life was one of the pivotal moments in this journey of yours. And I'm curious if there are other moments when you felt that spark of source or of God in orienting you along your path.
Well, as I have shared, that I mentioned that I had been married. I've been married 3 times. So the first time I didn't choose well. I used to say I allowed myself to be chosen, but as I became a more responsible person, I said, no, I did not choose well. The second time I did not choose well. And so during those different times, there would be many hardships, and I would not have enough money. I would be struggling to know, how am I going to take care of my children? How am I going to take care of my family? Because these 2 people in these first 2 marriages, very intelligent people, had serious emotional problems that they didn't want to support their families. They did not support their families. And so I found God out of necessity. I found God as I did not know where the rent was coming from, or where the food was coming from, or where some other things were coming from. I used to read the Bible a lot and read certain scriptures and say them in terms of, God is my source and God is my strength. And I would read the 23rd Psalm and all of that. And I'll have to tell you later, I was estranged from organized religion, but I started reading various scriptures and various religious texts because I could not live in fear. I just knew that it was not going to help me. I could not live like that. I could not function like that. It felt too hard. So I started calling on this loving God, and that was not a God that I had seen in the Methodist Church and a God I had seen in the community, but I started seeking this loving God who would be there for me, who acknowledged me as her child. And that's how I think. I didn't even know anything about mysticism or being a mystic, but I discovered that I could have a personal relationship with God. And I could talk to God, and I could tell God my needs, and I could tell God my concerns, and then I could put them down. And it really worked. I would be in the same physical situation, but I wasn't carrying the burden because I was able to turn it over. And so that was critical for me as I started discovering a personal God. And I call her now Sophia. And it really works for me. And I'm so happy. I can just talk to Sophia and we just have our regular conversation. Now, Sophia, I'm going to be on this program with Serena, and I don't know what to say. So, I'm just counting on you to help me know, and for Serena to send me these things and guide my path, because I already told Serena, all I know how to do is just show up and be me. So, okay, Sophia. And Sophia doesn't let me down.
I'm so grateful for your sharing that, and feel the presence of Sophia that moves and lives between us and in this conversation. And one of the one of the impulses behind this conversation in this entire series is just the ways that God, creator, divine, Sophia, intuition, the invisible, the ancestral, all these movements of soul and spirit are so deeply alive and present in the work we do. I worked in federal government and on loneliness and social isolation, and we weren't able to say the words, talk like we do. And yet, I would find myself in meetings sometimes just trying to hold a place of like love in my own heart, or in difficult moments in conversations, just asking, please, source, come and be here and fill us with what we need to know or to act. And when I think about and observe movement work, I mean, it is so deeply about how, and Grace Lee Boggs is such a teacher to me, and this is all about the evolution of the human soul. It is nothing less than that. And how do we work with mystery, and how do we work with Creator? And so it's just so beautiful to hear the ways that is so central to how you show up, Aljosie. And you're now a movement elder, and you recently told me about you're with the organization Project South. You're a movement elder in residence, which I just think is one of the most fabulous roles.
I have an official title, and I get paid to be this person. Isn't this wonderful? I get compensated to go out and be me and do me. What higher joy is that? I am a movement elder in residence with Project South. I hope people will look up projectsouth.org and see about the work. Project South has been around since the 30s. No, for about 30 years. Sorry, not the 30s, for about 30 years. And I go to this meetings. I participate in a sub-project that's called Movement University. I participate out there in the Brownsville community and with community people who are there. And I just show up and be me. And I listen to things that are going on. I try to, from the beginning, to hold whatever we're doing in love and in faith that we're all the right people and we will do the things that we need to do. And sometimes I have comments from history. Sometimes I have lessons learned. Sometimes I have not much to say in the larger group. I'm discovering that sometimes my role is with one-on-one or small groups, to speak to people, to encourage people, to remind them that they know what they need to know. Or speak to a young man who told me he had 5 children, and I think maybe by 5 different women, but to talk to him later and ask him, does he take them to the library? And what is he doing in their lives? And is he trying to be the man that he wants to be? Is he trying to father them in ways that will help them grow and bloom? And sometimes I get real personal with people and get real involved with people, but I always remind people that even if I ask them deeply personal questions, they are individuals. They don't have to answer me. They have the authority to say nothing or to ignore me or to walk off. But I am not called to tell people what to do. But I sometimes do feel deeply to ask them or to remind them, or something like the Quakers. I truly believe in something almost like a clearness committee, that you get together with people that you trust, and you kind of continue to ask questions and ask questions and ask questions until people get deeper and deeper into their own knowing and understanding and trusting. And so I like to play that role, and Project South allows me to do that, to go to different organizations and different places and to just be me. I just came back from the Highlander Center in Tennessee with a gathering that was around solidarity, journalism, and archival work. And I am very interested in archival work, very interested in preserving stories and preserving oral traditions. And I'm concerned about solidarity journalism and journalism in grassroots areas. And I just went and was me. And I learned and I listened and I contributed a few things that I knew how to contribute. But even more, I built relationships. And so now I know I am better acquainted with about 15 young people or younger people, primarily in the age from the 20s to the 40s, maybe one person who was in her 60s. But I build relationships. So that's my job as I go different places to build relationships and not to just end them, but have these ongoing relationships. And so I discover, like last January at the On Being gathering in California, I discovered Serena. And so I'm now here today with Serena, and we don't know what will come out of this or where we will go from here. So my job is to just show up and be me, to share lessons learned, to encourage people, to tell them simply that I'm 83 and I'm still alive. I've been through a lot of hardships, but I know that we can make a difference in the world just by being our best selves. I know that what looks like dark, I'm copying somebody's term. Somebody said, is this the darkness? Oh, I won't get it right. But the whole thing about this is really the darkness of the womb just before we come into light, come into birth. And so I just share all those things that I believe in. Sometimes I share an affirmation that one time I was so scared about money and I created an affirmation. May I share this affirmation with you? This affirmation says, I give thanks for multiple streams of abundant income that flow to me as I use gifts endowed by the Creator in service to my fellow divine siblings. And so when I would get afraid about not enough, I would affirm that I believed in abundant income and multiple streams because someone told me it's a poor rat that only has one hole to run in. Or if you're in a job situation and you can't be your best self, if you only have one source of income, it's a little frightening to stand and to think about the possibility of losing that one source. So I like multiple sources of abundant income. So this is who I've become through struggle and through practice and through longing and through what we'll talk about. We have to talk about the love of Vincent Harding.
We do, and we will. And, Aljosie, as I'm hearing you share, at first I wanted to ask, so for those who may not know, like, what does a movement elder do? But then as I was listening to you talk, Aljosie, I was like, oh my gosh, it's not about doing, it's about how you be and the beingness of you and what you can invite. And, I almost imagined the way of your being and that of movement elders is almost this container, this holding container, or a way of hosting people, a radical hospitality to allow them to step into their own streams of knowing and being and healing, and then from that deeper or more grounded or more abundant place, they're the work getting started. And so it's just so beautiful to hear your reflections on that.
And let me say that one of the things I want to do is to find some way to compile the pictures and the videos and the printed programs and some of the stories and to document what this experience has been and to say a few things that I understand about the value and to invite other people that I've been with over this last period of time to speak to the value to them so that we can broaden this whole thing of movement elder in residence, and other organizations may want to have such a thing. I also work with a local university, Kennesaw State University, and take myself there as elder in residence. And I want to be able to say, for example, I'm getting compensated because many of us who are elders have meager funds and we can't go various places and we need a little help. I enjoy this extra income that I can share with my grandchildren or contribute to different organizations or support other things that I believe in. So we're looking at what is needed to support an elder in residence so that we can have more of them who can go and be and do and visit. And so I'll be looking for input from you and from some other people that I've been engaging with over the last year as we go forward, so that I'm now about 1 year in this role with Project South, and I have another year. It was an inaugural 2-year position created for me. So I need help. I need support in describing this and visioning this and seeing how we can have more movement elders and residents who can be there to nurture and hold and encourage and inspire and cry with and laugh with and all of that.
I love that so much. And I would love to continue our conversations on that and how we across generations nurture the wholeness of each of us. And that includes the material concerns and well-being of all of us. And it begs these bigger questions around, what does a real infrastructure of care and community and radical love look like? So to be continued for sure. And, as you're talking as well, Josie, one thing I'm reflecting on is just your remarkable capacity to tell stories and to be a story holder and keeper. And I'm in a moment in my life at the age of 27 where I've started to return to some pretty basic questions of who am I? Where do I come from? Where am I going? And why am I here? Which I know are essential spiritual or religious questions or philosophical ones too, and really asking questions around home and my people. And in this moment, I'm quite aware that I don't feel like I have a fully intact story of life and self and family and lineage. I know bits and pieces, but they're kind of fragmented. And some pieces, have been intentionally cast in the shadows, or the actual archives of family history has been lost due to events and repression in China over the years. And so as I enter into my late 20s, I'm aware of this kind of developmental impulse to understand and create a more intact story. And I think there's something so deeply healing about that. And next week I'll be traveling back to Michigan, which is where I was born and raised, for 2 weeks to try to understand my own personal history that is layered within the racial, the economic, the political history of Detroit and the suburbs. And so, I guess I would love to hear your own reflections on how story is essential to our healing journeys. And that is both our personal stories, but also, as you talk about, and I think part of the work at the Highlander Center with memory work and archival work is the need to repair the stories and the histories that we share as well.
I think stories are essential because stories really speak to the heart. And stories speak to us in a way that telling you certain facts will not speak to you. The facts will come, but the stories will move. And that stories will help you, I believe, to more fully understand, to care, to see possibilities. And I got to stories so much because I didn't realize that that's just how I communicate. And I didn't truly appreciate that that's how I communicate. Let me just say, there was a time when I would be at certain gatherings that would be intellectual and people are talking about facts and they're doing their political analysis and they're this, and I don't have anything to contribute here because my mind wasn't operating like that. And then as I grew, I learned to just be me. So that if I had a story to share, and sometimes in that growing phase, I wasn't always sure of the value, I would sometimes preference it by, I don't have the analysis here, but let me just tell you the story. And I would insert different stories or share events. And I came to value how we need all of that We need the analysis, but we also need the stories. Stories help us to be human. And that is who I am. I am a storyteller. There was a time again that I was stopping to evaluate some of my friends who have the PhDs, and I was feeling, oh, I I don't know. Someone was inviting me to be somewhere, and I was saying, I don't know why they're invited me. I'm not doctor this, I'm not doctor that. I haven't done the PhD. And I was able to stop and go, oh, did you try to do the PhD? Did you try to go to graduate school and do that? No. So why are you evaluating yourself on the path not taken? Why are you evaluating yourself on not being the analyst? Why can't you accept being yourself, the storyteller, the person who shows up and is herself? And I got more and more comfortable. And as I told you before this, all I know how to do, Serena, is show up and be me. And I'll do that. But I'm not sure how to do some of these other things. And I have read stories all my life. I've been so moved by people's stories and people who were able to make livings and do things and come out of circumstances that would look like they would never get out of. And I just know the power, the encouragement, the strength of stories. And I think if more and more of us believe that we communicate well through stories and start telling our stories and sharing our stories and encouraging them, that they will do more in terms of helping us to be these compassionate people that we claim we want to be. Because stories speak to, do you see the other as a human being? Do you see the other? Can you feel the other? And I know as a mother, I can feel a mother's love for children. I can feel a mother's love that will allow me to come into a situation and to work with people who may be difficult people, because we all know that we love human beings. But, we love mankind, but it's these individual human beings who are just hard to work with. And so through stories, we can get past some of that and accept one another. And so I would like to see more and more of us. I so wish that my mother had been able to tell me even more about her story. I know that that her own mother died when she was 10. And that she told me she had to become the lady of the household, and she had to cook and clean and wash and do things. And so I know that she had a lot of pain, a lot of loss, but she didn't know how to tell it. And therefore she closed in and absorbed a lot of pain. And I regret that we didn't have a relationship where we could talk about things, talk about her pain, talk about my pain. And therefore, so much was lost. And I've had to go back and to find and to recall different pieces of her stories. And so it was when I became a mother that I started to appreciate her and to value her and to understand some of the things she had gone through and to some of the choices that you make at the moment. And you're not thinking about the future. I am sure she was not, when she was in the relationship with my father in its early stages, she wasn't thinking about, oh, there's going to be a little girl and she's going to be Aljosie and she's going to have this and this kind of hardship. No, she was into her life. And I am now at a phase where I want to tell more about my mother's stories and tell how I started to see my mother, who was very strong and very independent, 4 feet, 11 inches tall, weighed about 125 pounds, who would kill a snake, shoot a person, do whatever was necessary, but who was afraid of frogs. And that's one of my loving stories. My mom, when I discovered she was afraid of frogs and the power that it gave me. Mm-hmm. So there's so many things in terms of stories helped me to see myself and see power. Stories about my brother who chased someone through the neighborhood with a hammer because that person had made me cry. And this man is running through the neighborhood. My brother's behind him with a hammer, and I'm behind my brother. Don't kill him, Bubba. Don't kill him. Don't kill him. simply because he had made me cry. And other stories throughout my life that are just integral to who I am. And I think people can feel stories, and we need to be able to feel. We need to be able to feel each other's humanity.
Thank you. Absolutely. Which is the perfect place to bring in your dear your dear love with Vincent. And meeting you, Aljosie, and hearing about some of the stories that you shared on that fateful car ride home from the On Being gathering months ago, with one of my own beloveds. It really reinforced to me that the way we love at home, within our families, with our friends, in our communities, these forms of love, it's all part of the broader revolutionary love, peace and justice that we seek. And yet it's not often something that I hear talked about in the public sphere. How our more intimate love in partnership, friendship, family, children is both a direct manifestation and contributor to building beloved community. And so I think that's why I was just so magnified as someone who, I often find myself trying to do the serious work of justice and love and care in the world. And yet when I'm with my friends, we often just giggle about romance and talk about matters of the heart. And it's all so related. And I just so love the ways that you and Vincent practiced and lived into this fierce and beautiful love for one another until the day that he passed, almost a little bit over a decade in a couple of days
10
now.
years ago. He died on May 19th, 2014.
Wow.
Yes.
And it's still an act of love that transcends that. And just to make sure everybody knows that Dr. Vincent Harding is such a beloved teacher and civil rights activist and historian, professor, and perhaps best well known for helping to write Dr. King's Beyond Vietnam speech. And Aljosie, if you don't mind, to kick off this part of our conversation, I'd love to read the poem that Omid Safi, the professor of Islamic studies at Duke University, wrote, who spent good time with you both. And this was a poem that came out of that time, which is such an expression of the love that you both share.
Go ahead.
So it goes like this. There is a love that is stronger than death. We give anything to taste such a love, whether it comes early in life, in the middle days, or in the last of our earthly days. There is a love that sometimes in the form of an old friend, sometimes it comes reinvigorating a life that has grown stale. Sometimes it comes in the form of a stranger, standing in a corner of a lobby. And upon first glance, you know that you have known this stranger since before there were stars. Deep in your bones, you know that for as long as there has been a keeper of the stars, there has been this divine love. What a gift this love is, and what work it has taken to prepare ourselves for this love. As someone said, the task of life is not merely to find love. It is to knock down all the obstacles that stand against love inside our own heart. When we knock down our own ego, our own hardness, our own shadows, then love comes to town. Some of the shadows can only be removed when love comes, when light comes, when the beloved comes. But the Jesus of our hearts has to kick over the tables of the money changers. The Muhammad of our soul has to knock down the idols of the Kaaba before the divine love can come rushing in. How does it feel to hear that poem read back to you, Aljosie?
It's very beautiful. I was so touched after Omid and I had that conversation when he wrote this the article and ended it with that poem. I felt that he felt a love that Vincent and I had. And I want to say here that I was not Vincent's first love. Vincent was married for 44 years to Rosemary Harding, and they had a very strong working relationship, loving relationship, and 2 children. And Vincent and I were co-workers back in 69, 70 to 74 at the Institute of the Black World, but we were just co-workers. And then over the years, I would see him at different gatherings. I'd see him at the signing of his book. I'd see him various places. And then at the Obama, one of the Obama inauguration events, I saw him in DC in 2009, as we were talking about. It was going to be the 40th anniversary of the Institute of the Black World, which was a Black think tank in service to the community. And we needed to do a reunion, and nobody was really putting it together. I was like, oh, well, I'll help with the directory. And then that moving from Michigan to Atlanta and helping to coordinate the reunion. So Vincent had been my comrade, but it was 2009 as we started talking about the reunion. And then it was 2010 when we started to be together more, and we discovered that we so loved one another. And Rose died in 2004, so she'd been dead for many years. And I'm 69 and Vincent is 79. And that was the beginning of this beautiful relationship that I did a seminar on: radical love, hot, sweet, and transformative.
Tell us, Aljosie, about how this love with Vincent, which you refer to as elder love, one of the best forms of love, when you were 69 and he was 79, how is this love different from the other loves that you've had? Or rather, what were some of your favorite parts about what this love brought out in you?
That is the key part, what this love brought out into me, because of who Vincent was. I also give thanks to the many years that he had been with Rose and the things that he had learned and how he had grown in that relationship. As I just said, I had had 2 marriages. The first one lasted 10 years, was not very happy. The next one was 4 years, was not happy at all. And I had been divorced for almost 30 years. And I was not looking for a relationship. Even though I had said a prayer asking God to send me the right person, if there was a person for me, a few years before Vincent and I started working together again. Vincent came to me fully formed as a human being, a person who was so filled with love. He likes to talk about the love of his church in Harlem, the love of many people who had poured into him. And he came with a certain love that you could feel. Almost anybody who knew Vincent will tell you that they could feel his love. He poured it into you. He was fully present when he talked to you. And he would stay there and talk as long as you needed. Sometimes in our working relationship, I was the person who had to say, Vincent, we have to go to the next engagement. Vincent, we know you have to do so-and-so. Vincent, you cannot give your phone number to everybody in the world that you meet. You cannot do that. But Vincent was a very loving person who was fully present. And for me, what I found was trust. I fully felt that I could trust him. I fully felt that he was there. He exhibited all the time and expressed all the time that he just wanted me to be myself. So when I was ugly and did some things that I would later come back and say, Vincent, I am so sorry I did that, he would say, well, that's okay. That must be how you felt. That must have been how you felt at the moment. That's all right. And I could totally be myself. I might have mentioned to you one time, Vincent and I were having a disagreement about something, a conversation. And that was the other thing. I felt that I could disagree. I felt that I could ask for what I want. I felt that I could say when I didn't think I was getting what I wanted. And so I said to Vincent, I'm disappointed. And he actually got tears in his eyes. And he said, I never want to disappoint you. And so he brought me such warmth, I could trust him. He was there for my children. As I said, I had 3 children, and he cared about them. My older daughter, Ayana, who's a teacher, Vincent exalted her and told her how wonderful that role is. There's no higher role than be a teacher. My son, Ohaji, said he learned to be a better man by seeing Vincent interact with me. My younger daughter, Amber, at our wedding, said, people were talking about this Vincent Harding, who was an academic and who wrote books and who was a friend of Dr. Martin Luther King. But what mattered to her was that he made her mother giggle. And he made me giggle. And so later in life, I just found this person who was my friend, person I could talk to, person who liked to travel, and we had good times. We went to Wyoming, we went to Palestine, we went all kinds of places together. He loved jazz, we listened to music and letters. He wrote me the most beautiful letters. He was a trained journalist and just a loving person. Vincent loved writing and sending cards. My birthday is January 20th. So this is a birthday card that Vincent was sending me on December 4th. He started sending me birthday cards in November, and he sent them through March. So I might have 20 birthday cards from Vincent. And he sent me this one that says, some cute little girls grow up to be cute big girls. To everyone who meets you, it is evident that cute little girls can grow up to be strong and wonderful women and still be cute. And it's Maya Angelou's quote. And inside, he always wrote inside, and I sure wish you could see it. He said, and this is the kind of language Vincent wrote in, my dear, dear sister, companion, friend, coworker, should I worry that you'll be weary of my greetings by the time your birthday arrives, or by the time you arrive, or by the time I arrive? Should I worry that you'll feel over-celebrated, too cherished, too loved? Should I worry? No. I simply refuse to worry, and I refuse to stop this long period of celebrating you. Love me. And then over the card itself said, today is for celebrating the woman you are, a woman who shares her beautiful spirit with the world and makes a difference in so many lives. Happy birthday. And he added, now and always, love, Vincent. So I have all those kinds of letters. And then Vincent would sometimes write on notebook paper. So I have his notebook paper that he wrote on. And he would write these long letters. So on December 4th, 2010, he wrote this letter. And he also wrote sent the card. And he would go out, if we were in different places, and go to FedEx and pay them big amounts of money. So that I would have this letter by the next morning at 10 o'clock. And he would do that whenever we were apart. And if we were in the same city, same town, same place, he might write a letter because I'd gone out of the room or gone someplace else. And I might have a letter when I came back, was on my bed. And he wrote beautiful letters. And so if there's a space, there's a paragraph or two from another letter that he wrote on the same day that he sent the card that I can share with you.
But if you'd like, we'd totally welcome it.
I'll just take a minute. This one, again, is December 4th, 2010. This is the beginning of our hot relationship. My dear sister, beloved companion, beautiful agent, fellow traveler, friend, loving friend. I did not plan to write to you tonight, but several things occurred today that seemed to send me toward you and your loving, available, collaborative presence. And he goes on to talk about a conversation that we'd had. It was filled with joy and with a deep recognition of how beautiful we fit together, meeting each other at all kinds of contact, connecting points. Thank you, loving agent. Thank you, precious ancestors. Thank you, divine spirit. Thank you, Aljosie Aldrich Knight. You light up my life. And because of that, there's so much of my life that I want to, need to, hope to share with you. And he went on and on and on. And then there's some other things. And he just wrote beautiful, beautiful letters. And then he would, on the back of it, he's telling me something about a conversation he had with someone in the movement who was concerned about 9/11 and whether or not 9/11 was really what we think it was. And so he writes and he talks about that. And then he'll come back to another part of us. Let me see. Okay, the ending part. Now, nearly 1 a.m. in Denver, nearly 3 a.m. in Atlanta. I see you. I kiss your head as you sleep. I continue to give thanks for you. Foolishly, I am sometimes tempted to ask, why did I have to wait so long for you? Why is it so late in my life, in our lives, that the seeds have sprouted? But I know the questions are foolish, and I simply needed to confess them to you. Thank you for receiving the confession. Thank you for nurturing the plant. Thank you for loving me so. I see you. Good night until we're able to share my bed. How many days? My. Good night. I'll see you in my dreams and dream you into my sight. With love and hope, Vincent.
There are almost no words that can. Well, Vincent tried so, and he did so well. But just to feel through those words and the energy of your sharing, Aljosie, that type of love, it feels like there's just such a sense of divinity and eternity. And I loved in what Omid wrote around, it does not need to come around for the first time or early in one's life. And it has this quality of timelessness. And I'm just standing here reflecting like how beautiful to get to witness and to believe in that type of love as possible. And the thing that I most love about what you shared, Aljosie, is you were like, and I was just me. I could just be me, and the grace of that. And so I guess I'm curious, Aljosie, what words of advice or or reflections you might share for those of us at all ages of life, ages and stages, who are in our journeys around love and seeking companionship and partnership along the path.
Well, Omid suggested that you have to do your work along the path. That this love comes as you continue to grow and as you continue to understand yourself, as you continue to not really forgive people, because you don't have to forgive people, but you have to recognize that people are who they are and release some of those expectations and that anger and disappointment. And so I worked many years to be a better person, to understand more about myself, to understand who I wanted to be. And by the time Vincent and I saw each other really, when I was 69 and 79, I mentioned earlier that I had maybe about 2 years before that, I had said a prayer one New Year's. I had felt like I really would like to have somebody in my life. So just before New Year's, I'd said this prayer, and I'd asked for someone to come. And I said, I need somebody I can talk to and laugh with, somebody who will accept me as I am, somebody I can travel with. And I asked the Creator, if you have such a person, send them to me. But if you don't, take the taste out of my mouth. I don't even want that person. But I'm not good at seeing who the person is. So you're going to have to mark them and make it obvious that this is the person you sent, or I won't know. But if there's such a person, I'm ready. I've been doing my work, and I really want this person in my life. And it was maybe a year. I think maybe a year or a little less that Vincent came into my life. So my suggestion is to just work on your inner self, to work on being the best person you can be, to enjoy whatever love you have, whether it's with siblings or community or found family, to love life, to love service, to love nature, to just not be so focused on what you don't have, but to be grateful for what you do have and enjoy that, to learn to be loving, because that was the other thing. Before I really had love, I finally discovered that you get a great sense of satisfaction from being loving, and you have control over being loving. You don't have a lot of control over whether or not you receive the love, but being loving gives you a great satisfaction, and you have a lot of control over it. So I've been practicing being a loving person, and that's all I share with people. Just be your loving self. Keep working on yourself, remembering that you are truly the beloved of the Creator. And just trust, and things will come to you. Gifts will come to you. You may not always have them as long as you might want them, but love is truly eternal.
Mm-hmm. How do you experience the eternity of the love between you and Vincent?
Vincent can cross time and space. And he told me he would be able to. I didn't bring a poem that he gave me. Maybe about 3 years before he died, he had gone to the funeral of someone, and he came back with this poem, and he said it was also from him. And he said, think of me as being in the next room. And that was the whole poem about he would never be gone. It was like he might be in the next room, and that he would always be here. We didn't seriously talk about we might not be together forever, but I knew he had serious health issues. And from time to time, the whole thought of we may not have a long time would come up, and then we would say, but we will risk the precious time we have now if we focus on what we might not have. So let's just stay focused on the precious time we have now and be the loving partners that we can be now. But I can sometimes I can feel the breeze on my arm, and it feels like Vincent stroking my arm, or I can conjure him up at different times. And truly, he can cross time and space, and I can feel his loving presence. And I'm just truly, truly grateful that I have that, and that I had an opportunity to taste such a love, because it is truly a gift. It is truly a gift.
It truly is such a beautiful gift. And Aljosie, I must ask, as we start to bring our conversation to a close today, and Aljosie, what does this form of love that you share with Vincent have to do with beloved community and this work of building towards these worlds of peace that we all long for?
Mm-hmm. I think it gives you a certain, having this kind of love gives you a certain covering, a certain protection, a certain incentive to want to see other people as your divine siblings, to want to be there, to want for them what you want for yourself. This kind of love for me is the preparation for coming out to be in this world that is sometimes a very cruel world, a very difficult world. I think it is the inner faith, the belief that a new world is not only possible, it's here. We just have to take off these blinders, or take off these colored glasses that make us see through a distorted lens, that something is different is very possible. And to work for it, and to believe in it. And let's say, I don't want this audience, to think that I am always deeply in this assurance. Well, I am in the assurance, but as a human being, sometimes I can lose the stability or the faith. I remember when Tamir Rice was murdered, and he was 12 years old, and he was killed within seconds of the police getting out of the car. And I had male grandchildren who were 12 years old. And for some reason, as I was thinking about that, the pain that his mother must have felt just came on me. And I started crying in a way that I really felt like I was not going to ever be able to stop crying. And I was really afraid. And I was at my daughter's house, and I didn't want to stay isolated in the room, but I didn't want to go upstairs and scare everybody by the way I was crying. But I slowly went upstairs and I saw her and she saw me. I told her what was wrong. I said, I am feeling his mother's agony. I cannot stop crying. I don't think I'm going to ever stop crying. And she said, let me make you some tea and just sit down and this will pass. And it did. It did pass. But I'm saying that this kind of love can sometimes not shelter you from that kind of pain, but it will allow you to come back out of it, to know that it's dark, it's night, but joy cometh in the morning, and the sun will rise again, and the plant that looks dead in the winter will sprout again in the spring. So I think this kind of love just gives you an assurance, a confidence of renewal, And again, like plants, I plant the seed. I may never sit under the tree, but I know that I have to plant the plant for someone else to sit under the tree. It's not about me sitting under the tree. And I think this radical love will give us the ability to keep doing good work, to keep loving people, even people we don't like, because there are a lot of people that I practice love, but I truly don't like them for a lot of reasons. I believe we just have to be these kinds of beings in order to create the kind of society we want to live in, and in appreciation for whatever gifts we have in this society that we live in. And it's about being the work. It's not about political beliefs. It's not about gender. It's not about race, but it's about being the loving divine siblings that we want to be.
Thank you, Aljosie. As we come to a close today in this conversation, I just wonder what else is on your heart or feels ripe to share with this audience and those who will be joining us on this podcast.
Let me see what is on my heart. One of the things that's on my heart is the message, the co-mentoring that comes when I'm with younger movement people, is that it's going to be okay, that we're going to be okay. We are concerned about the conditions of the world. We are concerned about climate. We are concerned about war. We are involved in organizations that are trying to make a difference, that are trying to end war, various places. I am truly not telling people to just sit in the living room and drink tea and not be involved in the change. But I'm saying that I think we do ourselves and the world a disservice when we can't find some joy, when we can't find some peace anytime in this service. If we're constantly quoting the bad statistics and complaining about the problems in the world, when we're constantly focused on that, we're not renewing our energy to be a part of the change, to be a part of service, to receive ideas on how we can make a difference, whether it's sending some money or participating in something or helping your neighbor. There are opportunities everywhere to be the change. Some of us can do serious work about Gaza, but many of us have to do serious work in our neighborhood, in our communities, in our places where we serve. We have to forgive in our families. We have to forgive in a number of places. So I speak to people about being the change they want to see. And what does Howard Thurman say? We don't have to really ask about what the world needs. All we have to do is ask what makes us come alive, and go and do what makes us come alive, because that's what the world needs, people who've come alive. So that's my message.
Beautiful. Thank you, Aljosie, so much for joining us on the New School today. And what does love have to do with this? Well, it has everything to do with this. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Kira.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Aljosie and Serena. Such a beautiful conversation. I love seeing you both together, just such different backgrounds and people, but so much in common and so much connection across the generations between you. Yeah. So thank you for all that you each bring to the world. And if you're on our mailing lists or if you follow our feeds on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, you'll be notified when the recordings are posted. Another reminder to join us for the June conversation in this series with Serena and Kayleani Mom. You can find out more and register for both events on our website, tns.commonweal.org. Aljosie, Aldrich Harding, and Serena Bian, thank you for being with us at the New School at Commonweal. See you next time, everybody.
Don't take it, 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 don't